Hey there and welcome back to Stupid Game Experiments. I'm Axel Cannon and my current stupid experiment is building the same game in 3 of the most popular game engines, Unity, Unreal, and Godot. The game is called SH++, and it's a cross between N++ and Asteroid. This is my 4th weekly recap video covering all the development that's happened in the last week, but I also put up new videos every single day, so make sure you hit that subscribe button to see all the latest updates. I divide these weekly recap videos into 2 separate sections. The first half covers the development of the game features for SH++, and the second half covers my observations on the individual game engines. So without further ado, let's talk about SH++. Let me start with a couple of minor updates that I made to the game. First, I added some game juice by making the camera shake whenever the player character runs into something. The intensity of the shake is also somewhat determined by the velocity of the impact. However, I'm not entirely sold on this. Bouncing off the walls is a frequent part of the game, and all that shaking can get kind of annoying. For now, I'm going to leave it and I'll revisit it later. The other minor update was adding a warp gate object to the game. Well, sort of. I've actually only added it to Unreal so far. I tried adding it to Godot, but changing the locations of rigid bodies isn't as simple as changing the position, so I didn't get the code working. And getting Unreal and Godot working took so long that I didn't have time to implement it in Unity, and I haven't gone back to revisit it yet. My main focus this week, however, has been working on a level creator. In theory, I want to eventually make an in-game level editor and allow users to share levels. So the first thing I had to decide was a format for storing the level information so that it could be shared between players. My first thought was using Tiled, which is an open source tile map editor. However, I couldn't find good importers for all 3 engines, and there were some other challenges I didn't want to deal with. I also looked at the way that the N++ in-game level editor works. It's really cool, but I couldn't figure out a simple way to implement it, and I didn't want to invest the amount of time I thought it would take to figure it out. So ultimately, I decided to just add a square shape and a triangle shape and allow them to be scaled and rotated. This isn't a perfect solution, but it's an easy one to implement. Once I got that up and running, I decided that the look of the game was kind of boring. So I tried playing around with the appearance. First, I tried creating this border around the walls like they have in N++. The problem is that the way my level editor works is different from theirs, so creating the border didn't work as well. For my game, I rendered a second object under the wall and scaled it so it's just a little larger. This way, the border doesn't show where the 2 objects meet. However, there are 2 problems with this. First, other game objects can cover up the border, so it doesn't look like the border is part of the wall. On the corners where 2 triangles meet, it creates these weird points. I'll probably try to find solutions for these later, but I'm just going to leave it for now. The next thing I did was try adding a background and playing with the color scheme. I got some great feedback on this in the comments from my videos on this. However, as I started playing around with the background, I quickly realized that any change in this direction would require changing all the assets in the game, or it looked inconsistent. I may still do this, however, I wanted to wait until I had the rest of the game more or less built. So for now, I've settled on changing the color scheme so it at least looks better for the daily devlog videos. On the topic of daily devlog videos, development has hit a point where daily progress is becoming slower and simultaneous development in all 3 game engines is becoming harder. Up until now, I've mostly been able to cover a new topic each day because everything I created was mostly simple objects that were relatively easy to make. However, I've finished most of those and I've started working on the more complex systems for the game. These always take longer to develop in general, and even more so when figuring out the differences in the 3 different game engines. I'm dealing with this in 2 different ways. First, all my development on the level editor has only been in Unreal so far. This allowed me to prototype until I figured out how I wanted the system to work in the first place. Now that I mostly have that figured out, I can move on to implementing it in the other 2 engines. At the same time I was developing the game in Unreal, I've spent a lot of time investigating design practices in the other 2 engines. I haven't gotten them completely figured out yet, but I'm far enough along to start testing out different ideas to see what works. Because I've sort of been working on different things in the different engines, I don't have any major comparisons of the 3 engines this week. However, this week I did realize an advantage to working in all 3 game engines simultaneously that I hadn't considered when I started this project. The way each game engine is developed tends to naturally push the developer towards making specific design choices. This can lead to a one-size-fits-all method of finding solutions in that game engine. However, working in all 3 game engines simultaneously means that I'm forced to look at problems from these different design perspectives. This allows me to figure out which is the best solution for a specific task and then figure out how to develop it that way in all 3 engines, even if that isn't the way a developer would normally think about it in that engine. That's probably all kind of vague, but now that I've noticed it, I'll do some videos on some specific examples when I get further into development. For now, that wraps up this week in development for SH++ in Unreal, Unity, and Godot. If you're enjoying these weekly recaps, make sure to let me know by hitting the like button. Also, don't forget that I put up new videos, so if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss out. If you need to get caught up on previous videos, there's a link to the full playlist in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.